You know, when you're young, you don't think too much about time. It just feels like it stretches out ahead of you, endless, like a road with no turns. You take your body for granted, your health, your energy. You assume it'll always be there. And then, somewhere along the way, the years start stacking up, and you realize something. Time doesn't move the same way anymore. The road isn't endless. It has turns, twists, and eventually, an ending. That realization, it hits people in different ways. Some ignore it, hoping if they don't think about it, it won't matter. Others fear it, worrying about every little ache and pain. But the wise ones? The wise ones understand that the goal isn't to fear the end. It's to make sure that however much time you have left, you live it well. And that's where habits come in. Now, I've seen a lot of people grow old. Some with grace, some with struggle. Some live long but miserable. Others live long and full of joy. And I've noticed something. It's not just luck. There are patterns, choices, habits that make all the difference. And the good news is, it's never too late to change. Even if you're past 70, the way you live today will shape the years ahead. Let's start with something simple. Something most people overlook, the habit of moving. Now, when I say movement, I don't mean running marathons or lifting heavy weights. That's for the younger folks. But the truth is, the moment you stop moving, your body starts to shut down. Muscles shrink, joints stiffen, your heart weakens. And I've seen too many people, good, hard-working folks, spend their last years trapped in their own bodies, unable to do the things they once loved. See, the body is like an old house. If you stop opening the windows, dust settles. If you never use the doors, the hinges rust. You don't need to renovate the whole place overnight, but you do need to keep it in use. A daily walk, stretching in the morning, a bit of gardening. Even just standing up and sitting down a few extra times a day can make a difference. I had a friend, Jim, 82 years old. Used to work construction, strong as an ox in his younger years. But after retirement, he slowed down. Then he stopped moving. His knees gave out, his back hurt, and before he knew it, he was barely leaving the house. Doctor told him he had to start moving again, or things would only get worse. So he started small, 5-minute walks, then 10, then 15. 3 years later, I saw him out at the park, walking faster than men 20 years younger than him. That's the power of movement. You don't have to do much, but you have to do something. And here's the trick: make it enjoyable. Dance in the kitchen, walk with a friend, stretch while watching TV. If you force yourself into something miserable, you won't stick with it. But if you find movement that feels good, it'll become second nature. Now, the second habit, the one that goes hand in hand with movement, is eating wisely. Notice I didn't say dieting. Diets come and go. They're trends, fads. What you need is a way of eating that your body thanks you for. And by 70, your body tells you loud and clear. What works and what doesn't? It punishes bad choices and it rewards good ones. The problem is, most people ignore the signals. I've known people who eat like they did in their 30s. Fried food, sugar, processed junk, and then wonder why they feel tired all the time, why their joints ache, why their digestion is a mess. Your body changes as you age. It's not about eating less, it's about eating smarter. Now, I won't sit here and tell you to cut out all your favorite foods. Life's too short for that. But I will say this: make the good stuff the main event. More greens, more fiber, more foods that come from the earth instead of a factory. Pay attention to how food makes you feel. If you eat something and feel sluggish afterward, take note. If you eat something and feel energized, take note. And hydration. Let me tell you, if there's one thing that makes an instant difference, it's drinking enough water. I know, it sounds too simple. But I've seen folks who think they have arthritis, brain fog, fatigue, only to realize they were just dehydrated. Your body is mostly water. If you don't give it enough, it struggles. And here's something. most people don't think about. Eating isn't just about the food. It's about how you eat. Sit down. Enjoy your meals. Eat slowly. Pay attention. I see too many people, even older folks, shoveling food into their mouths while watching TV, barely tasting a thing. Food isn't just fuel. It's an experience. Treat it that way. Now, you might be wondering, does it really make that much of a difference? Let me tell you about my neighbor, Helen. She's 90 now, still living on her own, still sharp as a tack. She didn't grow up on fancy health advice, but she did something simple. She cooked her own food. She ate whole ingredients. She drank plenty of water, and she never stuffed herself just because food was in front of her. The small things add up. Every meal is a chance to help your body or harm it. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be mindful. So we've talked about movement. We've talked about eating wisely. That's just the beginning. Because longevity isn't just about the body. It's about the mind, the spirit, the way you live your days, and that's what we'll talk about next. But first, let this sink in. If you only take away one thing from today, let it be this: it's never too late to take care of yourself. Whether you're 70, 80, or beyond, the choices you make today shape the life you live tomorrow. Now we've talked about movement and eating wisely. Those are the foundations, the things that keep your body working. But here's something people don't think about enough. The mind matters just as much as the body. See, I've met plenty of folks who are physically healthy but miserable inside. And let me tell you, that kind of suffering can eat away at you just as surely as any disease. The people who live the longest, and not just long, but well, aren't just taking care of their bodies. They're taking care of what's inside their heads too. That brings me to the third habit: staying curious and engaged with life. You know what ages a person faster than anything? Boredom. Waking up every day with nothing to look forward to. Feeling like your best days are behind you. It drains a person, makes them stop trying, stop moving, stop caring. And that's when life starts slipping away. I'll tell you about a man I knew, Frank. He retired at 65, planned on traveling, picking up hobbies, spending time with his wife. But you know what happened? A year into retirement, he was lost. Spent his days in front of the TV, barely leaving the house. He wasn't sick, not at first, but he was shrinking. His world got smaller. His days felt the same. And not long after that, his health started going downhill. Then there's Margaret, same age, same situation, retired at 65. But instead of settling into routine, she picked up new things. She learned how to paint, started volunteering, joined a book club. At 75, she decided she wanted to learn Spanish. At 80, she took up Tai Chi. And at 90, she was still laughing, still learning, still full of life. The difference? Margaret stayed engaged. That's the trick, right there. You have to stay interested in the world. You have to wake up with something on your mind, something to do, something to learn. It doesn't have to be big. You don't need to reinvent yourself overnight. But you do need to keep that curiosity alive. Try new things, even if you think you're too old. Pick up a book on a topic you know nothing about. Start a project, no matter how small. If you stop using your mind, it dulls. But if you keep challenging it, it stays sharp. And don't fall into the trap of thinking, "Oh, I can't do that. I'm too old." You're not. You know how many 80-year-olds I've met who learned how to use a smartphone just to stay connected with their grandkids? Or 70-year-olds who picked up a new skill just for the fun of it? More than you'd think. You don't stop learning because you get old. You get old because you stop learning. And here's another thing. Staying engaged doesn't just mean keeping your mind active. It means staying connected to people too. That brings me to habit number 4, keeping strong relationships. You ever notice how the people who live the longest are rarely the ones who sit alone all day? There's a reason for that. Humans aren't meant to be isolated. We're built for connection, for laughter, for sharing stories over a meal. But too many people, as they get older, they start pulling away. Maybe they lose a spouse. Maybe their kids get busy. Maybe friends move or pass on, and before they know it, they're spending most of their time alone. And let me tell you, loneliness is deadly. It eats at a person's health in ways they don't even realize. Studies show that loneliness is just as bad as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. It weakens the immune system, raises blood pressure, increases the risk of dementia. And beyond all that, it just feels terrible. I get it though. Making new friends at 70, 80, 90, it's not easy. The world moves fast, and sometimes it feels like it's moving away from you. But here's what I've learned. People need people, no matter their age. You're never too old to build a new friendship. I knew a woman, Anne, lost her husband at 73, thought she'd spend the rest of her years alone. But then she joined a local walking group, started talking to the folks there, built new friendships. Now, at 85, she's got more friends than she did in her 60s. And it wasn't about replacing what she lost. It was about keeping her heart open to new connections. That's the key. Keep reaching out, even when it feels like people are pulling away. Call a friend, invite someone over for coffee, join a club, a group, a church, a community center. Even simple things, talking to the cashier at the store, chatting with a neighbor, they add up. They keep you connected to the world, and don't be afraid to let younger people into your life too. Grandkids, younger friends, even strangers. The best thing about getting older is that you have stories, wisdom, experience, and trust me, there are people out there who would love to hear it. And here's something important. If you have relationships in your life that need mending, don't wait. I've seen too many people hold on to grudges, waiting for the other person to make the first move. And then one day, they realize they waited too long. Don't let that be you. If there's someone you love, tell them. If there's a wound that needs healing, heal it. At the end of the day, the people in your life matter more than anything. A long life without love, without connection, that's not really living. We've talked about the body, keeping it moving, feeding it wisely. We've talked about the mind, staying curious, staying engaged. And we've talked about the heart, holding on to relationships, keeping people close. But there's one more habit, the one that ties everything together, the one that makes all the other efforts worthwhile. And it's something too many people overlook, the habit of embracing life as it is. Now I want you to really think about that, because I've seen a lot of people grow old, and I've seen the difference between those who live with joy and those who don't. And it has nothing to do with money, status, or even health. It has everything to do with how they see life. Let me tell you a story. There were two brothers I knew, John and Walter. Both lived into their 90s. Both had similar lives, same childhood, same hardships, same losses. But if you sat down and talked to them, you'd think they lived in two different worlds. John was bitter. Every conversation circled back to what went wrong, who disappointed him, what he missed out on. He talked about his aches, his regrets, his resentment, and it showed. He carried the weight of all those years like a burden. Walter, on the other hand, had the same struggles, but he laughed more. He told stories with a sparkle in his eye. He found humor in the small things, joy in simple pleasures. He still missed the people he lost, still had bad days, but he didn't dwell there. He chose to focus on what was still good instead of what was gone. Same life, same circumstances, but two completely different ways of living, and I'll tell you, Walter lived lighter. See, by the time you reach 70, 80, 90, you've seen a lot. You've lost people, you've had disappointments, you've made mistakes, and you have two choices. You can carry those things like a heavy sack on your back, letting them weigh you down, or you can set them down, lighten your load, and move forward with whatever time you have left. Because here's the truth. Life doesn't wait. It keeps moving. And if you spend your days stuck in the past, holding on to grudges, regrets, or wishing things had gone differently, you miss out on what's right in front of you. I've seen people in their 70s still angry about something that happened in their 30s. I've seen people in their 80s still bitter about a family falling out from decades ago. And the saddest part? The people they're angry at don't even think about it anymore. They moved on. But the one holding on to it, they're the ones still suffering. So if you want to live longer and live better, here's my advice. Let things go. Let go of old wounds. Let go of bitterness. Let go of regrets that you can't change. That doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending things didn't hurt. It just means not letting them control the time you have left. And that goes for fearing the future, too. Now I understand. Getting older comes with a lot of unknowns. Health changes, independence shifts, loved ones pass on. It can be scary. But if you spend every day worrying about what might happen, you'll miss the life that's still happening. I knew a woman, Eleanor, who was terrified of losing her independence. She worried about her health, about falling, about getting sick, and she let that fear stop her from doing things she loved. She stopped going on trips, stopped meeting friends, even stopped going for walks, not because she couldn't, but because she was afraid she might not be able to someday. And you know what happened? She ended up stuck in the very life she was afraid of. Not because she had to be, but because she chose fear over living. But then there was Harold. 88 years old, still going on road trips, still visiting friends. Did he have health problems? Sure. But he focused on what he could still do, not what he couldn't. He said, "I don't know how much time I have left, but I'm going to use it while I've got it." And that's the key to a long, good life. Not just existing, but actually living. Now, I'm not saying ignore reality. I'm not saying pretend things don't change with age. But there's a difference between preparing for the future and living in fear of it. So let me ask you, what do you still want to do? Because it's not too late. Not at 70, not at 80, not even at 90. I've met people who started painting in their 80s. People who fell in love again after losing a spouse. People who picked up an instrument for the first time at 75. The biggest mistake people make as they get older? They stop dreaming. Don't be one of those people. And listen, happiness isn't about big, dramatic moments. It's not about traveling the world or doing something grand. It's in the little things. It's the warmth of the sun on your face in the morning. It's the way your coffee tastes just right on a quiet afternoon. It's hearing an old song that brings back a good memory. It's sharing a laugh, a story, a moment with someone you care about. Those things, they matter. They're what make life worth living, no matter your age. So, as we wrap up this part of the conversation, I want you to think about something. What if you stopped worrying so much? What if you let go of the weight you've been carrying? What if you looked at today as a gift instead of spending it stuck in yesterday or tomorrow? Because at the end of it all, when people look back on their lives, they don't regret the little things. They don't regret what car they drove or how much money they had. They regret not spending more time with loved ones. They regret not laughing more, not enjoying the small things. They regret not truly living while they had the chance. But here's the good news. You still have time. That's how you make the years ahead count. And if you do that, no matter how long you live, you'll have truly lived. Now let me ask you, are you ready to make the most of the time you have left? Because that's what it all comes down to. At the end of the day, living longer isn't just about adding years. It's about making those years count. You don't have to be young to live well. You just have to make choices that support the life you want. Move your body, even if it's just a little each day. Eat foods that nourish you instead of slow you down. Keep your mind engaged. Stay curious. Keep learning. Keep growing. Hold on to the people who matter. Build new connections, and never let loneliness take over. And above all, embrace life as it is. Let go of the past, don't fear the future, and find joy in the small moments of today. Because here's the truth. Life doesn't end at 70, 80, or even 90. As long as you're breathing, you still have time to love, to laugh, to experience, to grow. So ask yourself, what are you doing with the time you have left? Are you truly living or just existing? The choice is yours. And if you choose wisely, you won't just live longer. You'll live better. And that's what really matters.